And everybody, we are in executive session now.
Yes, and so now that it's officially 5:30, I want to open our executive session for the May 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals. At this point, we want to turn it over to the staff for their presentation for our executive session.
Before we dive into the first item, I just wanted to check with Mr. Ross and Ms. Pounder if there's anything that you would like to do, any administrative items that you'd like to go over before we go into the first item.
No, I don't have any announcements. I think you've kept everybody abreast of the fact that they should still be continuing doing continuing education hours at this point and turning that information in. So that's about it.
And Mr. Harless, since you are talking through your phone, I did have to unmute you, or I did mute you. That seems to have cut out some of the feedback, so you may have to hit *6 on your home phone to speak into that and be heard. Do you mind trying that real quick?
How about that?
Yep, we got you now.
Okay. And are you getting feedback? Is there any noise?
Well, I think it's when somebody else is talking and you're not, that we'll start to hear feedback. We'll try it a little bit in the executive session. So Sarah, that was my only administrative thing. So we can continue to test this mic.
Okay, thank you. We've said it once before, but just as a reminder, this is the executive session and it is a broadcast. It is a time for staff to informally present the items on the agenda, and then any questions that the commission members may have. We have two attorneys with us from the city. We have our city attorney, Mac McCarroll, and then we also have the Board of Zoning Appeals attorney, Strain. At the time of the actual meeting, the applicant then will have an applicant's presentation as well. At this point, the applicant is listening, but there won't be a discussion with the applicant. So the item that's on our agenda, I do have a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm not going to present that now. If there are certain graphics, maps that you would like to see, you can let me know and I'll bring those up. But for now, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of the case before us. It is a use on appeal request for building expansion at Germantown Elementary School. Germantown Elementary School was first built in 1975 and had an addition in 1977. There were portable classrooms that were added in 2007. Those portable classrooms right now are not being used. Germantown Elementary School is part of the Shelby County school system. And currently it's a combination of students that attend from the areas in Shelby County zoned for the school, as well as those that are in their optional program. About 40% are in the optional program. The other 60% are from other areas in the district, including the zoned areas. The request before you is for a building expansion, a separate freestanding building, 22,000 square feet, 14 classrooms to replace those portable buildings. Per the applicant, the classrooms currently in the existing building have been doubled up in anticipation of this building expansion. The building expansion will be freestanding, connected to the building with a chain link fence and walls filled with fabric panels. There will be no new students or staff per the applicant. This is to accommodate their existing program. This started as a request to the Planning Commission, and it was reviewed by the Planning Commission subcommittee twice. This Planning Commission subcommittee did hold two different meetings. And in anticipation of the Planning Commission subcommittee meeting, there was a neighborhood meeting that was held on January 6th for the neighborhood. At the last Planning Commission subcommittee meeting, it was brought to the attention that the addition was actually 22,000 square feet, a two-story addition, and not the originally requested 11,000 square feet. That is the reason why it's now coming before you, is because it's considered an expansion of the use. And since this expansion of the use first needs to be analyzed, it comes to the Board of Zoning Appeals and then returns back to the Planning Commission for the site plan. This request was reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals on March 10th. The applicant's representative at that meeting requested to withdraw the application to address some of the board's questions from that meeting. The application was resubmitted, and the applicant submitted additional information that was in your agenda packet. There have been public comments that have been received for this application. Per email, there were approximately 20 letters of opposition, 1 letter of support, and a copy of a change.org petition that was submitted with about 700 signatures in opposition. Additionally, there were 70 paper form letters signed by 70 different individuals that were delivered to City Hall. Those were scanned and uploaded, as well as some videos that a resident submitted of traffic on Farringdon. Those were also uploaded to the packet. In reviewing this request, the use on appeal request, there are 4 criteria which the commission can analyze a use on appeal request. Ms. Bowden, this is what you were asking about. There are specific criteria that you need to look at when whether or not to grant this. 1, whether or not the approval will impair an adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property. 2, will it unreasonably increase congestion of public streets? 3, will it increase danger of fire or endanger public safety? 4, in any other way impair public health, safety, comfort, or welfare of inhabitants of the city? And further consideration may be given to landscaping, screening, location, or other conditions necessary to protect the property in the vicinity. These criteria were also outlined in the staff report, and I do have a slide that I can bring up that shows those criteria if needed, and it will be part of the presentation later. If this use on appeal is granted, it would then advance back to the Planning Commission, then the Design Review Commission for design elements, and then finally to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for a development contract. That concludes my synopsis. I'm available for questions. I'm going to turn it over to the chairman.
Thank you. At this point, I'll go through each commissioner, see if anyone has any questions. Commissioner Bowden, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Vice Chairman Clift?
No questions.
Alderman Gibson?
No questions, Madam Chairman, but I would just like a comment. The staff had requested of the applicant several answers to some questions that have been provided and was very helpful. And so much appreciated, one, but also just wanted to make certain that the commissioners were able to view that in the packet.
Thank you. Commissioner Harless?
Yes. Could I get a listing of the names of the applicants and their positions with the school board or the school system?
I will highlight those, and if I forget an individual, I might actually turn back over to the applicant and ask the applicant to assist me. The applicant is Shelby County Schools, and the main representative from Shelby County Schools who's been working with this application is Mr. Floyd Sides, who is in charge of construction with Shelby County Schools. The applicant's representative is Mr. Kevin Ledford with Ledford Engineering. There's also Ms. Jamie Morton, who is general counsel for Shelby County Schools. There's also Mr. Phillips, Jenard Phillips, and Michelle Stewart, also from Shelby County Schools. I apologize, I don't have their exact titles, but I am going to ask Mr. Sides if he would give the titles of those two people since I don't have them on hand.
Thank you, Sarah. One other question. I did not get the edition that you sent out today. I copied it, but I didn't get all the information. And one of the things I was looking for is the enrollment at Germantown Elementary in 2014, I believe.
Sarah, unmute yourself, Sarah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking for it. Mr. Harless, just give me one moment. I do have it here in an email, but it's just going to take me a moment to find it. Okay, so in 2013, 2014, that was the year that the district merged. Germantown Elementary was not an optional school at that time, and the zone included the current zone. There's a map of that current zone in your agenda packet, as well as a portion of the city of Germantown. There were 761 students enrolled. 752 were from the zoned areas, 52 were out of the zoned areas. Then in years 2014 to 2015, that was the demerger. There were 630 students enrolled total in the school, 395 from the zoned areas, and 235 from out of zone. And then in this school year, 2019-2020, there were 642 students enrolled, 351 are from the zoned areas, and 291 are from the out of zoned areas. And they also offered enrollment has held steady since the demerger by staying in the range of 620 and 650 seats.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Hurley, any questions?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Yulhorn, any questions?
No, I'm good.
All right, and I don't have any particular questions at this time either. I appreciate staff completing this entire report. Is quite a lot of information. So at this time, since there's no questions, I believe our executive session is completed until it's time for us to have our regular meeting at 6 o'clock. So.
Okay, I think what I will do in the interim until the main meeting starts is I'll bring up that one slide that shows the different criteria, so the commissioners can look at that and make sure that they're comfortable with the criteria, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
While she's doing that as well, for those that have called in, can I just get a verification of who you are and make sure that you know how to use *6 on your phone to unmute yourself? If your phone number ends in 12, can you unmute yourself? Or is that Mr. Harless's phone?
This is Michelle Stewart, Director of Facility Planning for Shelby County Schools.
Okay. Let's see. Phone number ending in 50. Anyone?
My name is Jenard Phillips. Hi, my
Okay.
name is Jenard Phillips, Chief of Business
Thank you.
Operations for Shelby County Schools.
Mr. Phillips, can you repeat that title again?
Chief of Business Operations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's see, phone number ending in 60. All right, let's try. Ms. Morton, do you want to try and checking your mic?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you are Shelby County Schools General Counsel?
Yeah, I'm actually Associate General Counsel.
Okay. Sarah, would it be helpful to you if I pulled up the presentation and since I have two screens here at the office and you just tell me to advance the slides for you once we get into the meeting?
Yeah, that might be better. For some reason, it's, let's see. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what it was doing before, but if I have that technical issue that I had before, I might ask you to do that. But at the moment, it seems like it's working. So I'll leave
Okay.
this up for a couple minutes. But yeah, thank you for offering that.
I'll have it pulled up just in case.
Okay, thank you. If anyone would like me to put that slide back up, I can do that. But I just thought that was maybe long enough for people to review it.
All right, Chairman Sisson, that is our 1 minute warning from Mr. Fisher before we start going live with our meeting. Remember, everyone, that you need to close your eyes and pretend you are in council chambers. This is a real and present meeting.
Okay, are we live? You're muted, Cameron.
Yes, we are live.
We
It
are.
is 6 o'clock.
Okay, now being 6 o'clock, I am calling to order the May 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals. Before we get started, I'm going to turn things over to Cameron Ross from the City of Germantown for a brief announcement.
Thank you, Chairman Sisson. All local governing bodies in the state of Tennessee have been impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. Germantown is no exception to this. In an effort to carry out our governance and operational responsibilities lawfully and effectively, while also considering the protection of public health, safety, and welfare, the Germantown City Administration has taken steps to conduct the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and other public meetings such as this Board of Zoning Appeals meeting electronically. These actions were taken in response to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 34, which is an order extending Executive Order 16, which suspends the requirements of Tennessee Open Meetings Act to the extent necessary to allow governing bodies subject to the act to meet and conduct essential business by electronic means. The Germantown Board of Mayor and Aldermen has determined that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, notice of such electronic meetings has been and will continue to be published in the same manner as is currently used for regular meetings. The public is also and will continue to be able to view the agenda, have access live to the actual meetings by electronic means, all this by logging into the city's webpage and by clicking on the appropriate link. Video recordings of the meetings will be made available as soon as practicable after each meeting on the city's website at www.germantown-tn.gov. These measures are temporary and are due to expire on June 30th, 2020, unless further action is taken by Governor Lee. Thank you, Chairman Sisson.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to make two announcements relative to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body, and as such, the latitude for acting on applications is somewhat limited by state statute and city ordinance. This meeting is being recorded. Therefore, anyone who speaks before the body tonight, including staff, will need to be sworn in. At this time, I would like to swear in the staff. So staff members, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. The second announcement I have is that our motions at this meeting are all made in the affirmative. As a result of that, it does not necessarily mean that the person making the motion or seconding the motion will actually vote for the motion when the roll is called. Those speaking to us tonight, when you come to the podium, when you unmute yourself, you will be asked to be sworn in. We'll ask that you state your name and your address so we can enter it into the record. At this time, if the Secretary will please call the roll so we can establish a quorum.
Alderman Gibson? Mr. Yulhorn?
Here.
Mr. Harless? Mr. Harless?
Unmute your mic, Mr. Hollis.
Try hitting stars. We can hear you now.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Hurley?
Here.
Ms. Bowden?
Here.
Ms. Cliff?
Here.
Chairman Sisson?
Here. The next item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from our March meeting. Those minutes have been disseminated among the commission. Can I get a...
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. If you will call the roll, please.
Alderman Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Bowden?
Abstain.
Ms. Cliff?
Yes.
Mr. Yulhorn?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Harless?
Yes.
Chairman Sisson?
Yes. The next item on our agenda is relative to Germantown Elementary School. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to staff for the staff report.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Sisson. The item before us is Germantown Elementary. I'm going to try to present my screen, so give me one moment to try to get that set up. Let's see here. Okay. So could someone please confirm that you're seeing the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Let me go back to the beginning then. Thank you. All right. So as you mentioned, the request before you is the Germantown Elementary School for a use on appeal. Germantown Elementary School is located in the R single family residential zoning district. As you see here, the red hatched piece of property. It shares property with Germantown Middle School to the right of the screen. To the north of the property is the fire station, as well as Red Devil Field and the Soccerplex Park. Germantown Elementary was constructed in 1975, and an addition was built in 1977. The portable classrooms that you see there, the first portables were erected in 2007. The entire property is shared with Germantown Middle School, and the portion of the Soccerplex parking is 24 acres. There are 50 parking spaces on site at Germantown Elementary that you see to the left of your screen. There are an additional 151 parking spaces through a parking agreement. Currently, there is no through access on the private drive that is between Germantown Elementary and Germantown Middle. There are barricades, concrete barricades there right now. Germantown Elementary School is part of the Shelby County school system. Currently, approximately 40% of the students attend the optional program, and the other 60% are from the zoned areas. You can see here, these are the zoned areas for Shelby County, from Shelby County that attend Germantown Elementary School. There is an area north of Forest Hill Irene Road, and then an area that is around Winchester and Forest Hill Irene Road to the south. The current request, as mentioned, is to remove the 10 portables, as you see there. The portables are currently not being used. The expansion would be in the footprint of where those portables are. It would be a freestanding building, as you see here on the site plan, a 22,000 square foot, 14 classrooms. Currently, since the portables have not been in use, the classes have been doubled up in the existing school building per the applicant. With this building addition, no new students are projected to be added and no new staff is projected to be added. This project was first viewed by the Planning Commission subcommittee. At that time, the Planning Commission subcommittee was under the impression that the addition would be 11,000 square feet, which was similar to the portables that are to be removed. However, it came to light that the addition was actually 22,000 square feet, which is a greater expansion of the use than what is currently on site, which is why it is now before you, the Board of Zoning Appeals. Here you can see before you the list of the building data. You have the existing building as it's with the portables as it's laid out, and then you have the proposed building area with the new building and the existing school building, as well as some of the parking numbers that we've already talked about. Here you can see where those parking spaces are allocated, as we've already discussed. As for the new building addition, it is a separate freestanding building that would be connected to the existing school building with a chain link fence fabric, infill panels, and a metal canopy. It would house classrooms, just some regular classrooms, and then also special education classrooms. This request that you're seeing now was reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals at their March 10th, 2020 meeting. At that meeting, the applicant's representative requested to withdraw the application in order to address some of the board's questions that they had at that meeting. The application has since been resubmitted, and additional information has been provided by the applicant that was included in your packet. Public comment has been received for this project. Via email, there were approximately 20 letters of opposition, as well as a change.org petition with approximately 700 signatures. There was a letter of support also received via email. Additionally, there were letters delivered to City Hall. It was a paper form letter signed by 70 different residents in the area. Those were scanned and have been uploaded to the packet as well. What you see on the screen before you now, these are the criteria that are used to analyze use on appeal and whether or not to grant a use on appeal. The criteria are whether or not the approval will impair an adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property, will it unreasonably increase the congestion of public streets, increase the danger of fire and endanger public safety, and any other way impair the public health, safety, comfort, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city. Such consideration further may relate to screening, landscaping, location, and other conditions necessary to protect the property in the vicinity of the subject area. So the next steps for this project would be, if the use on appeal is granted, it will then advance to the Planning Commission again for their review of the site plan. If approved by the Planning Commission, it will then go to the Design Review Commission for approval of the revised site plan, as well as the building elevation, fencing, landscaping, and lighting. And then finally to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for a development contract. The applicant's team is here. I will allow the applicant to introduce his team when it's time. That concludes staff's presentation. I am going to exit out of the PowerPoint. If you have any questions about any of the slides, I'm happy to bring them back up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. At this time, I'm going to go through the list of commissioners to ask if any of them have questions of staff. Commissioner Hurley?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Harlett?
No, not at this time.
Alderman Gibson?
No.
Commissioner Clift?
No, I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Bowden?
No.
And Commissioner Gilhorn?
No. So I do have a question, but it can wait until later on.
Okay. Well, is it a question of staff or would it be a more?
No, question about the site plan.
Okay. All right. I also do not have a question of staff. So at this time, I'm going to ask for the applicant's team to present. And I don't know how many of you want to present, but we do need to swear in whoever wants to. So is there one representative that could give me some insight on that?
Madam Chairman, this is Kevin Ledford Engineering, Planning and Architecture. I was the applicant for the Shelby County Schools on the project. I can certainly address any site plan questions. However, when it comes to the school board, as far as population, faculty, and stuff, I would defer to Mr. Floyd Sides and the other members of his staff who are online with us.
Okay. Mr. Sides, are you available? I'm not sure I see you, but.
Yes, I'm available.
Okay. Since we anticipate definitely you two, would you both mind raising your right hand? We'll go ahead and swear you both in, and then if we need to swear additional people in, we can.
Okay.
Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay. Whichever one would like to begin.
Mr. Sides, I'll just go ahead, and if anyone has any questions as far as the site plan, the parking requirements or anything like that, or the traffic study that was prepared for this site, I'll do my best to address those. And then, if it's okay with you, then I'll turn it over to you and let you address student population, faculty, anticipated growth, the zones where the anticipated student population would come from, whether it's existing developments or I think there's a new development that's going in that there will be some student population from.
Okay.
Okay.
So do either of you have a presentation that you'd like to tell us, or do we want to go straight to the question portion?
I think Sarah's done a good job presenting, really exactly what we would like to have approved. And that is, since we are doing the 22,000 square feet, which requires the BZA approval, and you have the site plan there before you have the, we discussed a lot of items at the last meeting. So I would just say, let's go straight to any site plan issues as far as planning, and let's try and address those and then move forward from there.
Okay. And Mr. Sides too, if that's where you'd like to do, I'll go ahead and call the roll for the commissioners to ask questions, if that's how you'd like to proceed.
That's fine. Yes, we presented numerous. I think there's a lot of information on the table that we can proceed with the questions.
Okay. Okay, commissioners. At this time, if we have questions of the applicant, I'm going to go ahead and start with Commissioner Yulhorn, since I know he has one in mind.
Yes, I did. And looking through the packet, I noticed that the detailed description of addition of new school building, on that it indicated that there would be an emergency access drive, and it's noted on the plan, but it says that it's a 48-foot diameter cul-de-sac for emergency access that's east of the proposed building. And I guess my question about that is, and this is maybe a Department of Development issue that, they can explain to me, but I think all the cul-de-sacs that the fire department requires are something close to 100 feet. So I don't know how much use and benefit that would be of getting emergency equipment in there with 48 feet. The smallest street that we have in Germantown is 30 feet.
I think you're referring to the radius of that cul-de-sac and
Diameter, 48-foot diameter. Yeah, because I thought at first that it would be a radius, but if it's correct.
Well, there would be a misnomer on there because it's used. That's the radius of it. That's not the diameter, because you need about 90 for a fire truck. You have to have about 100 foot roughly, round numbers for a radius there on that. Yeah.
Okay, so we can assume then that that is a typo?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I feel kind of like a law school professor just getting to call people. Commissioner Harless, do you have any questions of the applicant? Oh, you're muted still.
How's that? I just did. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I have a couple of questions, Madam Chairman. Mr. Ledford, the traffic study, could you talk in generalities about the traffic study and the conclusion that you gathered from the traffic study? And the second question is, can you tell us what the cost of construction will be for the new addition and the additional landscaping, pond, etc.?
As far as generalities of the traffic study, the overall my overall understanding of traffic study, that the addition of the building would not create in itself any further issues with the traffic there. There appeared to be queuing distances in most directions, but there were some recommendations of things that we could do to help with those queuing distances. And I've talked with Mr. Sides about that, and the school is willing to look at those and address those if we need to. As far as the construction of the building and the site work, I mean, I can take a stab at it. We have not, to my understanding, Mr. Sides, correct me, we have not bid that out or had anyone looking at it at this point. But I would say the building itself is probably going to be in the neighborhood of $200 a square foot for that. And I would say you're probably looking at $150,000 to $200,000 worth of site work.
Yeah, the cost of the building we're looking at is probably anywhere in the range of $4 to $4.5 million, based on other additions that we've done at other school properties, and that includes site improvements as well.
Thank you. If I could go back to the traffic study for a minute. One of the comments in the traffic study was that there seemed to be an extremely long line of cars on the road south of the school in the mornings. I think it was close to 1,500 feet. Is that normal?
I would have to say yes, it is for most schools nowadays. You have, because of the way the transportation is, with more students that are delivered in personal vehicles versus buses. You know, most schools that you go to nowadays have pretty long queuing lines.
And based on the study, is there a way to reduce that queuing line down? Because as you know, there's a public safety issue regarding residents getting in and out of their street or in and out of their driveway, mail being delivered, trash, et cetera, et cetera.
We had discussed some on I guess it's cross country there, discussed bringing some more of that queuing on site, is a possibility.
So is that something that the school system is considering, or is the cost going to be prohibitive? Do you know what the cost would be to do that?
I do not at this time, no.
The school district has anticipated possibly bringing some of that queuing and stacking on site to help alleviate some of that on a cross-country road.
It would really be more of a reconfiguration of a lot of the paved areas that they already have. So, the cost wouldn't be, I don't think the cost of doing that would be prohibitive. It's just kind of a restriping of some pavement areas and maybe making a different entry into the south side of the property.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harless, are you finished?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Clift, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowden, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. What would be the maximum number of students once you have this expansion done for the school? I understand that you're in the 600 range now, and you don't expect that student base to increase, but it could increase over time. And what would be your maximum number that you could have?
I didn't catch the last part of the question, but there are no intentions of increasing the student capacity. We're going to maintain that 620, 650 range as in that one response to the email, and as the response stated, that if that goes above that, we will be denying some transfer students at that point. But our intent is to maintain a steady enrollment.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Hurley, do you have any questions?
Did you say Hurley?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay. I will restate my one concern that I believe I stated in the last meeting. That is that I understand that there is no projected increase in the number of students. But if we were considering any other use and they were making an addition that was, they were adding 22,000 square feet and demolishing 8,000 square feet. And they said that that was not going to result in an increase in the number of customers. I don't think we would take that on face value. And it's not that I doubt the school's intent, but whether, I think I use the example of a movie theater or even a shoe retail store. If they were expanding their use by that much square footage and telling us they weren't going to increase traffic or increase parking, we wouldn't just take that on face value. I don't know that that's going to really make a significant difference in the traffic, but I'm a little uncomfortable with just assuming that just because they don't see a projected increase in the student enrollment, that it won't in the end result in one. So I'm a little skeptical. Not that I think anyone's being deceptive. I'm a little skeptical that in the end it won't result in an increase in the number of students at that school. If you increase the the number of classrooms and if you increase the square footage and the capacity of the school, I think eventually it's going to be used. So that's the way I'm looking at this as we move forward.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, might I add something there?
Yes.
If we've got a queuing line that's more than a quarter-mile long, and it's an indication that, you know, they're not going to increase student population, I have the same concerns that Mr. Hurley does, in that, you know, if you build it, they will come. And I know that maybe right now that's not their intention, but I know that there are apartments being built southeast of this site, and that it may be a force that they have to find a place for the students. But I would like to know that right now the student population is about 600 students. With the square footage, all in the square footage, the 101 feet, what could the student population be at max?
Well, it's mostly going to depend on the teacher to student ratio, which on state average is anywhere from 28 to 30 to 1. But depending on what topics, or I'm not going to say topics, but whatever subjects as well as class types are in those classrooms, that student teacher ratio will fluctuate. There are some ECL classes that only allow, 15 students per teacher. There are some others that are 25 to 1. With the direction that the teaching is going with this 21st century thinking, with the 4 C's, as they call it, there is a requirement for the teachers to have a little bit more flexibility in their spaces so that they can have more collaboration between 2 classes into 1 classroom. So these spaces, that's what we're doing, is we're replacing these portables with these more collaborative, flexible spaces for teaching and student learning, to give them a more cohesive environment to feel like they're a participant with the building, instead of having to going outside the main campus into these small 2007 portables. They're going into a building that's part of the building. And that's what we're trying to establish here with this classroom edition, is that we're going to allow the flexibility for a better flexibility of learning, as well as a better flexibility of teaching.
Okay. Well, I guess it's a numbers thing with me, where we've got 80,000 square feet without the portables, but we're going to 101, which is a 20% increase, more than a 20% increase. The economy of scale is such, and tight budgets that schools have, it seems like with a 20% increase in the size of the structure, it would only make sense to have more people there. And that being the case, even if it's not anticipated now, if it comes to pass, those things that will impact us are 20% longer queuing line, just for instance, would be 1,800 feet, which is pushing close to a half mile. So anyway, those are my concerns. I'll let y'all get on with it.
All right, thank you. Alderman Gibson, do you have questions of the applicant?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chairman, and Shelby County School folks. Thank you for your patience. We're getting pretty good at these virtual meetings, but I appreciate this. I'm not exactly sure who to address my question to. I believe maybe Mr. Sides. As far as the portables that are on site now, how long have they been vacant?
They've only been vacant for, I think, just this school year. The principal anticipated us starting construction sooner than usual. She didn't realize that we were going through an approval process, so she doubled up on some classes. So they were vacant this year, but we're going to be preparing them this summer for re-occupancy until we actually are capable of possibly breaking ground.
Okay, so they're vacant. They were vacant now or for this past school year, but they were not condemned at all. They were still available for classroom setting. However, they were those, I guess, 280 so students were moved inside
Yes.
the brick and mortar.
Yes.
And were y'all still able to be compliant? Again, you mentioned state ratios. I know, for K through 5, it's per grade band, and 28 or so for that 4th and 5th grade, 22, 24 for 2nd and 3rd, and then on down. I know kindergarten, I think, is around 18. But those ratios, as far as to Commissioner Bowden's question, as far as what those max numbers are, there's that acceptable average over the grade band and then a max per class. Were y'all able to be compliant throughout this past school year?
Yes, it was a challenge and it still is a challenge, but we were able to be compliant.
Okay. As far as since when you say doubled up, I just want to, I'm trying to figure out when the students left those portables, they went inside. Did that mean that other grade bands had to, do you know how they were absorbed at that point?
I don't actually know the structure that the principal used in the way she managed and presented the occupancy of the buildings. I do know in a brief conversation with her, she stated that while one teacher was on her break, another teacher was occupying the space with her students. And then when the next period came up, that teacher left and her students left and kids came in. So that's the way it was. It was kind of like an alternating team effort.
Sure. Well, and I kind of giggled a little bit because I know teachers don't get breaks. There is no such thing these days. And I have the greatest respect for Principal Sanders and the associate principals there too. So just a few other questions. I know the traffic study that was performed back in February, it does not account for or take into an account for any increase in student numbers. That is correct. Current enrollment 642 students. The traffic study, and this may be for Mr. Ledford, it does not account for anything greater than that. Is that right? You're on mute.
I apologize. Yes, that is correct. We used the information that was provided by the Shelby County Schools, and they had no anticipated growth in student population.
Okay.
Or in faculty.
Or in faculty. That's helpful. So with it being in Ms. Warleski's staff report, she mentioned that 60% of students are in the optional program. So that means that they are carpool. They are not bus riders. Is that correct?
Alderman Gibson, just to clarify, it was approximately 40% are in the optional program. The 60% are from the zoned areas or possibly transferred in from other areas. But I'll defer to Mr. Sides.
Thank you.
If he wants to elaborate on that.
I'm going to ask Ms. Stewart, our Director of Facilities and Planning, to respond to the optional question. She's more in tune with that population.
That'll be good. That'll be good. Thank you, Mr. Sines. And I think Ms. Sisson is going to swear her in.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Stewart.
Yes.
Hi. If you'll raise your hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right. And if you can go ahead and answer Alderman Gibson's question.
So the way the optional program transfers work, or any transfer program for that matter for Shelby County Schools, is that we know school capacity and we don't want to overcrowd our schools. So if there are more zone students, for instance, if more apartment units come online and more students come into our zone, then we will be forced to decrease the number of transfer students. So our number one priority is to take care of the students that are in the zone. And the majority, not the majority, all of those students actually are bus riders that are in the zone. So you're correct in that the carpool students are the optional students.
And was that number, and I apologize for flipping it, 40% are optional out of the 642 students?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. And I know that in the executive summary for the traffic study from Alexander Engineering, it indicated part of their findings that number 2 on page 1, and this is not material, so don't go searching for it. But it was important to me is that one of their major findings was that the proposed building expansion, it's not expected to result in any increase in traffic since no change in enrollment is projected. And I think that you're probably have heard some of the concern that we as board members have with that assumption of that. And then in the Kimley Horn report from Mr. James Collins, Tar City engineer, again, that letter prefaced with no changes to the staff or student population as well. And so I guess let me head back to see if there's any other questions. These are probably for Ms. Stewart as well. And this is a comment and a question. So just 2 years ago, Shelby County Schools was looking at about $500 million worth of deferred maintenance, proposing 26 schools be closed, building 10 new ones with additions on 5 of them. But the GES addition at that time wasn't part of that growth plan. And so one of the questions that I have is why now? And specifically, so to you, what is that long range plan for Germantown Elementary?
So the plan that you're speaking of was after the GES addition proposal. So the GES addition proposal was before we ever started talking about this plan. The plan is to keep educating the students that are zoned to our school. The majority that are, all of them are that are zoned live in the unincorporated areas. And the plan is to continue to educate those students and keep one of our most, Germantown Elementary School is an excellent optional school and a nice choice for parents.
So as far as a 5 or a 10-year strategic plan, any way to delve into that at all? Just because I think that on the surface, to Commissioner Hurley's point, you know, for someone that would come before a planning commission with the kind of math problem that we have with, we don't have, we've got a doubling of the square footage. I think that long range really is what we're all looking to, because this is a decision that once we make today, that folks that will come after us will be living with. So 5-year, 10-year strategic plan for that part of the district.
Sure. So Dr. Ray is going to present the district's entire 5 to 10 year plan to our board and then to our county commission. As the COVID-19 came on, those plans kind of obviously got pushed back. And so we haven't been able to move forward with that part of the plan right just yet, as we try to figure out the technology issues and all of those things for our students. That will be forthcoming. But as I said, the plan for Germantown Elementary School is to continue educating the students that are currently in the Germantown Elementary School zone. And it should also be noted that the classroom addition is not expanding the capacity. The classrooms will be bigger than the portables. The portables are just trailers. And we'll have restrooms and we'll have small administrative spaces so that administrators can be in the building with the students. So all of those things weren't present in a portable situation, right?
Okay, yeah. Very helpful. Thank you. And listen, I know that we're all collectively struggling with this new world that we're living in right now. I appreciate your candor. Those are the only questions that I have right now.
All right, thank you, Alderman Gibson. At this point, I'm the last commissioner, so have just a few questions, and I apologize. I'm sure that this is in what has been presented, but there's just been so much information. I want to make sure that I have this correct. Going to Ms. Stewart's comment just a moment ago about you're not really increasing the number of classrooms because you've got these other spaces that are necessary to provide education for certain types of students. I just want to kind of drill down on that because I think we're seeing a theme across our commissioners that we're concerned that schools that things change over time, and while you may not have an intention at this point for the numbers to grow, we've all seen times where things change. You have to do what you have to do. I mean, we're currently living that. We're trying to just make the best of what you've got. So you've got 8, I think 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 portables right now. Is that correct? Okay. And then you'll have how many classrooms will be in this expanded area?
You'll have, I'm trying to recall the floor plans. I think you're going to have about 10 classrooms and 2 special needs classrooms in that complex. It may be 4, but I'm trying to remember the prototype that we used. But right now, I think it's 10 classrooms and 2 to 4 self-contained or pre-K if they're designed for pre-K and K and first grades to have their own restrooms within those classrooms. So.
Okay, so those 2 to 4 areas are you talking about? Are they like bathroom areas or particular use? Or are they classrooms that are? So you have 10 regular classrooms and then 2 to 4 special classrooms.
I'm going to see if I can call up on my screen what the actual layout has. There are actually 2, 1, 2, 2, 4, 2. You'll have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're going to have 10 classrooms and 12 classrooms and 2 CDC classrooms.
And just for those of us who are not versed as well in all of the educational acronyms, what are CDC?
They're kind of they're quite well. There's all kinds, but they're kind of self-contained. They're for like special needs or pre-K. They provide some appurtenances that a typical classroom for pre-K or first grade may or may not have. Kind of say larger, say adult diaper changing areas if those were going to be required. It allows us that flexibility to install them if we need to.
So those classrooms are classrooms in and of themselves, and then they have these additional things that help with that particular classroom. But the classroom, those two classrooms do not support the other 12 classrooms. They are enclosed within themselves. That's a classroom plus bathroom or whatever additional need is met. So there would be a class that would meet in that room.
Correct.
Okay. And that's where I think we, or at least I have some struggle with, is you've got 10 portables, which can have a maximum of 10 classrooms, classes meeting in them, and you're wanting to go up to 12 classrooms plus really 14 classrooms. And as I think we have heard over and over, nobody is indicating that people are not being forthcoming. We're just all concerned about what unforeseen activity is lurking in the future that will cause us to cause Shelby County Schools to need to utilize all of those classrooms. And at that point, we run into traffic issues that we're seeing now. Yes.
Could I clarify that currently our special needs population, our special needs classroom inside of the existing building are in very small spaces, and they're in those spaces because a special needs classroom will usually have no more than 5 to 7 children in it. So in this new building, when there are restrooms available and sinks and things that these classrooms might need, those children can go out into the new building and be in a classroom that is more fitting to their needs, because they don't change classes. They don't leave and go to, well, they do leave and go to art, but they don't leave nearly as much as just a general ed classroom. So the need for, the reason that we plan these extra classrooms into the addition with the restrooms and whatnot are for the pre-K students and special needs students, so that they're not in these small rooms inside of the main building. So that was one of the necessities for that.
So what's the intention for those small rooms then? Are they, once those classrooms go, those classes go into those equipped classrooms, are those spaces, what's going to happen to those spaces?
We have administrators that are doubled and tripled up into spaces with each other. So as the small rooms become available, then there can be guidance counselors in there. There can be social workers in there. We have well child. We have healthcare workers in our schools, and everybody is just constantly trading spaces.
So is there a definite plan of we're moving, 2 of these classes into these new buildings, and those 2 classrooms will be made for offices for these 2 people? Is there any information you can give us that is concrete about the plans for that, so that there's not a question of this classroom's moved into here and now we've got this other place, and while we have administrators that could use that, we could also put another classroom in that?
So we let the principal plan her own space because she is the administrator of that building. I can definitely try to get that from her and communicate it to you, but the way we calculate capacity is by knowing how many uses are in a building and how many spaces we actually need and how many spaces we are short. And we know that we are short these special needs classrooms, and we know that we are short these pre-K classrooms, and we know that we have administrators. When schools were designed, they were not designed with the number of administrators we now have, with the counselors and the social workers and the healthcare workers and the number of administrative, principals and assistant principals and whatnot. They weren't designed with that many adults. So there are definite needs of the school that we are trying to address.
Okay. And last question, back to the traffic studies. I just want to confirm what I think that I heard. These traffic studies were done, but at this time, there's no concrete plan for changing the traffic patterns with the school, with this plan that is coming through to build this addition.
At this time, no, we don't have a design because, we are waiting to know whether the building is going to be built or not. But in talking with Mr. Sides, we do agree that there are some things that we can do to help with that queuing, and which will be put into play. Yeah.
So is there, I guess, we're looking for a definite that this traffic issue is going to be addressed in some fashion.
I'll let you, I can confirm that, yes, we are going to address this traffic concern in some form or fashion. We're going to improve what's there. We're going to modify some striping. And if it warrants some modifications to some existing routing, we'll take that into play because we have built that into the budget regarding this addition.
Okay. All right. That concludes my questions. I think it's time we will, I'll ask if there is a motion.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion. Well, let me read it here. If I can find it. Instead of motion, we'll move to approve. Let's see. Yeah. And you explained already, Jennifer, that we make our motions in the affirmative regardless of how the vote comes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. My motion is to approve use on appeal for a 22,000 square foot building expansion to an existing public school at Germantown Elementary School, 2730 Cross Country Road, subject to the board's discussion, staff comments, and the site plan submitted with the application.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So now that we have a motion and a second, I'm going to go through our list of commissioners to have any final comments. You will not be, your vote is not necessarily required at this time. We'll have a voting call after this, but at this time, if you have any additional comments or questions or things that you want to state regarding this, including any comment or explanation that you want to give regarding your vote.
Well,
okay. And Commissioner, you'll go right ahead.
All right, motion's made, it's been seconded, but before we vote, my concern is that I think that Shelby County Schools has done an adequate job, especially considering that they have not used the portable buildings. But I do know that we did not, the city of Germantown or the Germantown Education municipal schools did not anticipate building a new school when they initially came to be. Now we know that due to growth and residential construction and so forth, it's mandated that we do. So we're going to increase a net increase of 22,000 feet. And I know that schools and as growth patterns occur, that it's going to create all kind of traffic problems, anticipated or not. And I just have and it winds through neighborhoods, and those should be as much a concern as the school itself. And it's not good now, and I don't see that it could get any better. So having said that, those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Yulhorn. Commissioner Bowden, do you have any comments?
My only comment would be that we have heard from a lot of the Germantown residents regarding this item, more so than we have for many other items that have come before us on this board over the last couple of years. So I just want to bring attention to that in regards to the letters that have been received at City Hall, the emails that we've received, and also the signatures on the petition. So there's been a lot of opposition within that community in that neighborhood surrounding the school. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Clift?
My kids went to Germantown Elementary, so I'm very familiar with the carpool line. Spent a lot of time there. And my daughter was special needs, so I'm very familiar with what that entailed. I read the traffic study, and to me, it anticipates more traffic because it spoke of redirecting the traffic down C.D. Smith and around through the farm park, which seems to me that will be increasing the traffic. And there was a direction that we talked to 45, and that is anyone who has driven carpool knows that.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay. Well, I was just saying, as I read the traffic study,
you may want to try turning off your video to open up your bandwidth a little bit.
And I have no idea what that means. I'm sorry.
If you'll just if you'll mute your video but leave your mic open so that your computer's not trying to stream the video side of things, that may allow a little bit more data to pass through so that you don't get broken up when you're talking. So in the same area that you're muting your
Turn your camera
muting
off.
You're turning your camera off. Thank you, Sheila.
Okay, now try.
Turn my camera off. Is that better?
Potentially.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you now. Okay.
I was just saying, I read the traffic study and it appears to anticipate a lot more traffic because it spoke of rerouting the traffic down C.D. Smith and around through the farm park. And that's only necessary if there are going to be more cars. So I really saw the traffic study as hurting the proponent more than it actually helped it.
Okay, thank you very much. Alderman Gibson.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. I first like to voice the respect that I have for the teachers and the school leaders at Germantown Elementary. In the last 7 years or so, anytime I've been invited, I have gone. I've actually judged science fairs, painted murals, done cleanup work on the grounds, and last but not least, officiated at a spelling bee, which we'll never do again. Those are brutal. But I have seen firsthand the commitment that those professionals have in the care and just the care that they have for their students and for the students' achievement. So first would like to say that my decision tonight weighs heavily on the concerns that I have about the ongoing safety issues with the traffic in the surrounding neighborhoods. Legitimate concerns from residents have related to speeding along cross country and Farringdon, cars blocking the fire station and driveways, residents' mailboxes and their driveways as well. And I do appreciate the subcommittee, planning committee subcommittee asking for that traffic study. But I'm still left with concerns that it does fall back on the assumption that there will be no new teacher nor student population at the school. So just recently, someone that I respect very, very much, a great deal, they asked me a question that went along these lines. If SCS is willing to invest $6 million, this much money, in improving the physical setting at Germantown Elementary, why would that be a bad thing? And that answer is that it's not a bad thing, but it is not about investing in the maintenance of the school. In my opinion, this is a significant expansion of that facility, and by doubling the square footage of the portable classrooms that are there now, while we're being told that only the current students and those teachers will utilize the new space, that's where I think that you've been able to hear some of the conundrum that we're finding ourselves in. And so I rarely these days use these words, but this is the setting where I can say, as a former Shelby County School Board member, I'm torn. Replacing portables with brick and mortar is optimum, but I don't actually see that that's what's happening with this request. And so given that, I know that Sarah, Ms. Gorleski did a great job of going to how we got here. There has been confusion surrounding whether it's 1 story or 2, 11,000 square feet or 22,000 square feet. And so I think it's put us in this realm of uncertainty. And so I think that we're being asked to look to overlook something that should be obvious, that the Shelby County School Board, their charge is to, they have a responsibility to those students. And so to Commissioner Yulhorn's point, if the squeeze is on, they're going to have to make decisions that are best for their district. And that could be contrary to what would be in the best interest for the residents who want to have a safe access to go about their business. And so if this were to be approved here through the Board of Zoning Appeals and then went on through the remaining approvals, if the SCS board were to adjust their attendance zone to optimize space, there's really nothing that we could do at this point or at that point. And so given that the expansion wasn't on the capital improvement plan 2 years ago, I believe that, frankly, that there are other opportunities for that district, but I no longer speak for Shelby County Schools. I believe teachers are able to teach and students are able to learn safely currently at Germantown Elementary. And that's what we want for every student, for every teacher. And as a member of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and as a member of this Board of Zoning Appeals under Article 2, Division 2, I've got an even stricter and more specific charge based on those 4 criteria that Ms. Gorleski shared with us earlier as far as what is allowable for use on appeal. And I'm going to be basing my decision tonight on that criteria. That's all.
Thank you, Alderman Gibson. Commissioner Harless, do you have anything to comment? Oh, you're muted. Still muted. There we go.
How's that? I got it? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I have 2 comments. The first one is regarding the school itself. And I'd like to talk about 2013, 2014, when there were 761 students in the school. And now we're reducing, currently we have almost 100 fewer students, which is about a 13% reduction in students. But at the same time, we're talking about a 26% increase in square footage. And I have difficulty with that. So that's one issue. The second issue is regarding the zoning area. There's two separate zoning areas for this school. And when I look at the map, I see that there are other elementary schools much closer to the zoning area than this school. One zoning area is north of Wolf River in the Cordova area, and we have Cordova Elementary and Macon Hall Elementary up there. I don't know what their capacity is, but it seems like it would be easier for these children, some of these children, to go there if there's an overcrowded at Germantown Elementary. To the south of 385, we have Lawrence School, we have Oak Forest Elementary, and we have Southwind Elementary, all three closer than going to Germantown Elementary. That's not counting the charter school, Du Bois Prep, that is also in the area. So I'm not sure why there hasn't been a shift in population to take care of this. As a Shelby County taxpayer, I'm also concerned that the school district is talking about spending $5 million on building classrooms when, in fact, just 5 years ago, they were able to handle 100 more students without an addition, but yet they're wanting to spend $5 million. And then I understand the school is $6 million over their budget. So a quick way to get in budget is to not have this construction and save that money. And as a taxpayer, I think everybody benefits by that. So I think these are issues that we all need to consider in addition to, obviously, the traffic issue. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hurley.
So in planning, you can hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. And the traffic study is based on the assumption, it assumes no increase in the size of the student body. And yet it's adding additional classrooms, and it's certainly adding, it's increasing the square footage of the school. So I don't think it is a realistic assumption that the student body is not going to increase. It may very well be everyone's estimation right now that it won't, but things change. I do thank them for alleviating some of my concerns. I understand that about the classrooms being self-contained and about a lot of the square footage being put to uses other than students. But that puts me in a somewhat uncomfortable circumstance because the concern that I do have is regarding the increase in traffic. And I don't know, because the traffic study doesn't help me to figure this out. I don't know what the possible increase in the student body means for traffic going through that neighborhood. My kids went to Germantown Elementary as well, and I do know about that car line wrapping around. And I do know that's a good deal of traffic. And I don't live in that neighborhood, but I understand there's a lot of concern in that neighborhood. Yeah, so I'm just in a bit of an uncomfortable situation because I don't feel like I have all of the information that I'd like to be able to make the decision.
Okay, thank you very much. The beauty of being the chairman is getting to go last, and I have I echo a lot of the sentiments that I've heard. Like Alderman Gibson, I'm very torn with this particular request. My background many years ago was in education. I taught at a brand new school. I had a wonderful facility. It was amazing. And so I want the students to have what they need, what the best that they can get to prepare them for moving on in the world. But I also know that when you have really nice facilities, particularly facilities that are not available at other schools, then parents will be drawn to that because they want the best for their children. So special needs children, pre-K children, having those, the restroom facilities and those type things available, I think this will become a draw for parents. And as Alderman Gibson mentioned, the SCS board has a duty to look out for those parents and those students and find the best education for them. And I think my concern is the weight of that on the infrastructure surrounding that school. And if we could see the future and we can know that the student body will never increase, that there will not be a additional traffic as they anticipate now, then I think we could feel more comfortable moving forward with this and representing to our fellow neighbors that we made this decision under the criteria that we are called to as the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Germantown. But at this point, we can't. And while SCS may not have any plans for that, I can't expect them to not be focused on what they are called to do to provide the best that they can for the students that they are set out to educate. So I'm concerned that there's just some safety issues with the traffic, that those have not been really addressed in the plan. I don't mean to disparage anyone. I think that that everyone is telling us the best that they know right now, and all of us are drawing on experience of times that we thought we had a plan and unexpected things happened, and 5 and 10 and 20 years from now, there's no way to remember this conversation and enforce the statements that the student body will not increase. Once we grant approval for this project, then we have no ability to police what level of students come to this school to take part in these beautiful new facilities. We've heard a lot from the residents of Germantown that live nearby about their concerns about the safety, the traffic, which I think really go to those three criteria for the use on appeal: the street congestion, the the endangering the safety, and then just generally impairing safety and comfort, welfare, and health of the area. We've heard complaints about idling cars, being on the street for long periods of time, speeding, incidences with pets being hit and that kind of thing. And I'm just concerned about that, that being increased with this, despite everybody's intention that it not at this point in time. So again, not nearly as eloquently as been stated previously, but I agree with many of the comments that we've heard tonight already. At this point, so since we're virtual and doing things a little bit differently, and we've all stated our comments, I'm going to ask that the secretary call the roll for your vote. And I would note that as we've been advised in previous meetings and at our training as part of our commission, that we state our explanations for our vote when we cast our vote as we go forward. I would remind you of that. So at this time, if the secretary would call the roll.
Okay. Alderman Gibson.
I'm voting no based on my opinion that if approved, this would create an undue burden on the neighborhood and increase congestion of the streets.
Mr. Yulhorn?
No, my vote is based on the fact that I think it's a safety issue. And going forward, you know, it's hard to predict what will happen, but as it is, just too much congestion and safety issues.
Okay, Ms. Cliff?
I vote no. I think it will create a public safety issue for the residents near the school, and I think it will unreasonably increase the congestion traffic around the school as well.
Ms. Bowden?
I vote no for the same reasons that the other commissioners and Alderman Gibson have mentioned.
Mr. Harless?
Mr. Harless, please unmute yourself.
How's that? I did.
Better.
Okay. I'm voting no. One reason is the obvious congestion to the public streets and the safety therein. And the other reason, I think the expenditure of $5 million affects the welfare of all Shelby Countyans, including the citizens of Germantown.
Mr. Hurley?
I'm going to vote yes. So I'm left to make a number of assumptions of the possible increase in the student body and what that means for the increase in the traffic in the neighborhood. And I would hope that as the application moved forward, that more information would be provided and that the Planning Commission and the Design Review Commission and the other commissions could add conditions to the application that would alleviate my concerns.
Chairman Sisson?
I'm going to vote no because of the street congestion issue, the safety issue, and just generally impairing the the welfare and health of the surrounding area of this school.
Okay.
So with that, the motion fails. At this time, I don't believe we have any old business or new business to take care of. So I will say that we will see you all in June and adjourn this May BZA meeting. Thank you very much for all your attendance.